Welcome back to my channel, all you odd historians. One disclaimer is that some of these stories may be exaggerated by historians, but they are entertaining nonetheless. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, but besides that, let's get started. She was the third wife of Emperor Claudius and the second cousin of Caligula. Empress Messalina was said to have over 150 lovers, and her promiscuous life was ultimately her downfall. Once Caligula was murdered and Claudius was installed as the next emperor, she used her influence over her husband for her own gain. With this new power, she was able to eliminate her opponents and amass great wealth. Some say that while Claudius was sleeping, she would sneak out and work as a prostitute in a brothel and later return to her husband. Her actions, unknown to Claudius, tarnished his reputation. It's been said that Mezzolina entered a competition with another prostitute, Scylla, in order to see who could please more men in 24 hours. Mezzolina ended up winning the competition by having sex with 25 men in one day. In 48 AD, Messalina married Senator Gaius Silius, her lover. Thinking this was a ploy to overthrow him, Claudius arranged for her execution. She was given a chance to take her own life, but instead was killed by one officer of the Praetorian Guard. Caligula was emperor from 37 AD to 41 AD and was Tiberius' successor. The accounts of his reign by ancient historians are so biased against him that the truth is impossible to determine. At an early stage of his reign, he became severely ill, and by all popular accounts, he was never the same after. Most historians have come to a consensus that he most likely suffered from epilepsy. After his sickness, his personality changed completely for the remaining of his life. For such a short reign of only 4 years, there are a lot of quotable stories during his reign, credible or not. Suetonius, a historian who was born 20 years after the reign of Caligula, wrote that Caligula regularly committed incest with his 3 sisters. He lived in habitual incest with all of his sisters, and at a large banquet he placed each of them in turn below him while his wife reclined. These acts would happen during large banquets in which all the guests and his wife watched on. It's been claimed that his sister Drusilla was his favorite, and he even had sex with her when he was just a boy. Piso, a Roman senator, invited Caligula to his wedding. Caligula fell for the wife, Livia Orestia, and banished Piso from Rome. According to both Cassius Dio and Suetonius, this occurred during the wedding celebrations of Piso and Orestia. Caligula was met with resistance in Orestia and happy with the events that occurred. The next day, Caligula divorced her, but prohibited her from returning to the relationship with Piso. Later, both Orestia and Piso were banished for adultery. He would also insist that high-status women would accompany their husbands to his banquets. Over dinner, he would examine these women and comment on their physical attributes. Then he proceeded to have sex with the wives. Later, when they came back after intercourse, he would evaluate her performance in front of her husband, commenting on both positive and negative aspects of the acts. Caligula was always better at spending money than actually making money. After depleting the coffers of the Roman vaults, in order to raise funds, Caligula decided to turn the Palantine into a whorehouse. To leave no kind of plunder untried, he opened a brothel in his palace, setting apart a number of rooms and furnishing them, where matrons and freeborn youths should stand exposed. Nero's legacy as a cold and heartless killer is seared into history. He murdered thousands of people, including his aunt, stepsister, ex-wife, mother, wife, and stepbrother. Some were killed in searing hot baths, while others were poisoned, beheaded, stabbed, burned, boiled, crucified, and impaled. He often raped women and cut off the veins and private parts of both men and women. Thousands of Christians were starved to death, burned, torn by dogs, fed to lions, crucified, used as torches, and nailed to crosses. After helping his mother Agrippina the Younger kill Emperor Claudius, it's said that Emperor Nero had a fully fledged, incestuous relationship with his mother. After being weary of her influence over him, Nero too had her killed. He supposedly defiled every single part of his body for pervasive desires. After exhausting all of these crude sexual practices, he had to come up with new ways to fulfill his desires. He devised an animal game in which he would dress in pelts to imitate animals similar to gladiatorial games. He would attack the genitalia of helpless men and women who had been tied to stakes. After his lust was sated, his freedman Doryphorus murdered them. In 64 AD, Nero married a man named Pythagoras, in which Nero took the role of the veiled bride. A few days later, he went through a formal wedding ceremony with one of the perverted gang called Pythagoras. The emperor, in the presence of witnesses, put on the bridal veil, dowry, marriage bed, wedding torches, all were there. Indeed, everything was public. But he wasn't the only husband Nero had. If you guys watched part 1, then you would remember Nero also had another husband called Sporus, who he castrated and married. By 65 AD, discontent for Nero's rule grew and the Pisonian conspiracy formed, led by Gaius Piso, the same guy that Caligula stole his wife, attempted an assassination plot on Nero and intended to become emperor. But the plan failed and Piso committed suicide. This led to 3 years of revolts, leading to Nero's suicide. Daughter of Emperor Antoninus Pius and the wife of succeeding Emperor Marcus Aurelius. It's claimed that Faustina the Younger numerously cheated on Marcus Aurelius with senators, soldiers, sailors, and gladiators. Most specifically, this story is about an affair with a gladiator. In ancient Rome, gladiators were the embodiment of sex symbols. Romans believed their sweat and blood were aphrodisiacs. Faustina became infatuated with one specific gladiator and had an affair with him. She later admitted her transgressions to Aurelius. True to Roman form, Aurelius invited both Faustina and the gladiator to his room. He told them to have sex and then killed the gladiator in the middle of it. He commanded Faustina to bathe in the gladiator's blood, clean it up, and then have sex with him. Aware of her continued cheating, Aurelius ignored her raunchy affairs and continued the marriage. Although the cause of her death in 175 AD is highly debated, it's fully known that Aurelius mourned her death after. Although never emperor, Julius Caesar was a Roman dictator that changed history by transitioning Rome from a republic to an empire, leading Augustus being crowned the first emperor. Respected by many, some aspects of his sex life led to many eyebrow lifts, even from his most loyal supporters. Caesar was rumored to enjoy cross-dressing. Although relationships with other men was acceptable during Roman times, being in the submissive role was damaging to anyone's reputation. Caesar was known to be more penetrated than actually the penetrator. Some of his most loyal legionnaires even chanted Caesar might have conquered the Gauls, but Nicomedes conquered him. But he did not only lay with men. He was known as a tireless seducer, and no woman, wife, or daughter was safe from Caesar. He also spent an enormous amount of public money on prostitutes. Caesar had many mistresses, but by far his most famous is Cleopatra. During a speech to the Senate, Caesar was given a note by a messenger. Senator Cato, a rival to Caesar, demanded Caesar to read the letter out loud in front of the whole Senate. Caesar tried not to read it, but Cato insisted. Written by one of his mistresses, Servia, the half-sister of Cato, proclaimed her love for Caesar in very sexual terms. Cato was made a fool in front of the whole Senate. Curiously enough, Servia's son was Marcus Brutus, one of the most famous senators that corroborated in Caesar's assassination. Thank you guys for watching the video. Please let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite. But besides that, this is Odd History and I'm signing off. See you next video.